Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session at Educators Plus. I am Akarshi, your English faculty at Educators Plus. So, students, I hope you are doing good and your preparations are going well. So, as you are following my series of British literature, so you must be knowing that we have completed 4 parts of British history. Okay, I have tried to touch upon the main writers and their works of British history. ठीक है, तो आपने ये भी देखा होगा कि मैंने सारे राइटर्स को मैं इस क्रैश कोर्स पे कैन नॉट टच अपॉन, बट आई हैव ट्राइड टू कवर अप द मेन राइटर्स एंड द क्वेश्चन दैट हैव बीन आस्क्ड फ्रॉम दोज राइटर्स. Also, students, I need your views that are you enjoying these sessions or not? Okay, so please comment on the comment section. Are you following this session or enjoying as well? Because that only gives me the motivation to come up with more substance for your UGC NET March examination. Okay, so आप मुझे comment section में बताइए क्या आपको ऐसे sessions और चाहिए, and are you enjoying these sessions? Are you able to prepare well from these sessions? Because British history के बाद I'll be coming with American literature, European literature, post-colonial literature, the literary theory, criticism. ये sessions तभी होंगे जब का आपका मुझे response मिलेगा in the chat box or in the comment section कि are you enjoying or do you need more such sessions? Okay, so I'm waiting for a response in the chat box and on the comment section. ठीक है, so let's not waste much of the time and let me know in the chat box, am I audible and visible to you properly? Can you just tell me in the chat box? Am I visible to you properly and audible as well? Okay, so now let's begin the class. So as you know that we have completed the British history till Romantic age. ठीक है, हमने Anglo Saxon पढ़ा, Anglo Norman, then Age of Chaucer, फिर Elizabethan, Jacobean, Caroline, Metaphysical, Puritan, Restoration, Augustan, Romantic. ठीक है, हमने इतनी सारी ages पढ़ रही है. उसमें मैंने आपको important writers, their works and the question that are formed from these works and writers I have talked about in my sessions. ठीक है, so अब हमने जैसे आपने अगर last session मेरा attend करा होगा, so you must be knowing that I have talked about the romantic writers. ठीक है, so romantic writers जैसे मैंने आपको बताया था कि first and second generation में divided है. So first generation में हमारे कौन था? Wordsworth, Wordsworth, Coleridge and Southey. So I have talked about these writers in my previous lecture. And in the second generation, कौन से writers थे? Keats, Shelley and Byron. तो उन writers के बारे में मैं इस lecture में बात करूँगी. तो please stay tuned throughout the lecture and please comment your doubts in the chat box and please like the session because that only will mark your attendance in this particular session. ठीक है? Yes, good morning. Okay. So मैंने जैसे आपको ब्रिटिश हिस्ट्री के बारे में पढ़ाया था, तो मैंने आपको बताया था रोमांटिक एज में that it is an age which marks the arrival of a new age which is dominated by emotions and sentiments. ठीक है, so जो ऑगस्टिन राइटर्स थे they were focusing more on rationality. उनको रीजन चाहिए था, ये आप लिख रहे हो क्यों लिख रहे हो, the logic behind that, उनको ये सब चाहिए था. बट जो रोमांटिक राइटर्स है उनका कहना था कि जो पोइट्री होती है वो रीजन और आपके लॉजिक से नहीं चल सकता, दैट इज टोटली योर इमोशंस. ठीक है, अगर आप किसी चीज के लिए बुरा फील कर रहे हो तो आपको उसके लिए लॉजिक चाहिए? नो, नॉट एट ऑल. सी, ठीक है, इफ समबडी इज नॉट फीलिंग वेल एंड आई एम फीलिंग बैड फॉर दैट पर्सन, दैट इज माई नेचर. ठीक है, और उसके लिए आपका लॉजिक और रीजन नहीं आएगा कि आपका नेचर ऐसा क्यों है. ठीक है, so that is not a part of the romantic writers. So these writers, actually the advent of these writers mark the decrease of the rationality in writing and the increase of emotion and sentiments. ठीक है, तो इनका primary motive क्या होता था? In the chat box, can you let me know कि what was the primary motive of the romantic writers? Can you please tell me in the chat box what is the primary motive of the romantic writer? So basically these writers emphasize more on simplicity and rest on reason and logic. ठीक है, तो उनका क्या था कि end function of the poetry should be pleasure. ठीक है, आपको कुछ चीज पढ़ के कुछ चीज याद करके आपको मजे आने चाहिए. You should enjoy that poetry, right? Neither you should instruct or it should not be something, you know, based on my instruction. आपको ऐसा डायडेक्टिक मोटिव नहीं होना चाहिए पोइट्री का. पोइट्री शुड मेयरली बी रिटन फॉर योर डिलाइट टू सो दैट यू कैन हैव प्लेजर फ्रॉम दैट राइटिंग. ठीक है, ये समझ में आया आपको? और इनका क्या था, इट लेड टू द रिवाइवल ऑफ द ओल्ड इंग्लिश पोएट्स, एंड इसमें क्या था, सिंप्लिसिटी वॉज एम्फेसाइज्ड इन थीम. राइटिंग शुड बी सिंपल एज पॉसिबल, बिकॉज अगर आप राइटिंग को ऑस्टेंटेशियस बनाओगे, आप उसमें ज़्यादा लिटरेरी डिवाइसेस, लिटरेरी सब डालोगे, ये फिगर ऑफ स्पीचेस, तो उसमें क्या होगा, जो एक लेमैन है, जो एक पर्सन है जिसको लिटरेचर की इतनी नॉलेज नहीं है, दैट पर्सन विल नॉट बी एबल टू गैदर प्लेजर फ्रॉम दैट राइटिंग. ठीक है, तो अगर आपको सपोज पता नहीं कि मेटाफर क्या है और सिमिली नहीं पता, आपको ये नहीं पता कि ऑक्सीमोरॉन क्या है, अगर उसमें राइटर ने यूज करा है तो आपको समझ में नहीं आएगा, ओ राइटर हैज प्लेड विद द वर्ड्स ओवर हियर, आप उसको अप्रिशिएट ही नहीं कर पाओगे. ठीक है, इन ऑर्डर टू अप्रिशिएट द पोएट्री, राइटिंग शुड बी सिंपल सो दैट अ रीडर कैन गेट मैक्सिमम प्लेजर फ्रॉम दैट पर्टिकुलर वर्क. ओके, fine. Let's move ahead. Let's talk about Byron. So Byron was a rhapsodist of this age, and he was a liberal idealist of this particular age. And Lord Byron was a very famous figure of this particular age. Why? Because he actually used to portray the contemporary issues, and he became the famous for verse satire. So जो ये Byron था, he was very much famous for verse satires. As I told you, जो Byron भी था, he was famous for satires like Alexander Pope. So he was not a happy man, he was a melancholy man, okay? And he used to write verse satires to satirize people of different people. So जो Vic journal था, ठीक है, that was the Edinburgh Review. In that particular journal, writers like Wordsworth, Southey, they used to criticize Byron, and Byron in turn used to write works in which he used to criticize other romantic writers. That's why he was famous for verse satires. Okay, he was famous for verse satires, and he was known as a rhapsodist of his age, and the heroes of a long narrative poems are known as Byronic heroes. Okay, so there was a term that emerged with this writing, that is Byronic heroes. आपने इसके बारे में पढ़ा होगा, that these kind of people, they're not happy people, they're melancholy people. Okay, जो बहुत ज़्यादा, he is a womanizer. Okay, and he was a solitary man that defies the convention and the rules and regulations of in time. जो भी आपको एक acceptable societal norms होते हैं, वो ये जो Byronic hero था, he never used to follow that. ठीक है, he was a womanizer, he was a very good looking man, बहुत smart होता था, but he was not good in character. So this type of a hero that used to been shown in the works of Byron. So you can see that how much he was kind of a a melancholy man, and he used to write verse satire. So satire, जो Byronic hero था, is also the personification of a satiric capability. Okay, fine. So now let's also this he was also known as the Greek national hero, because Greek used to take him as their national hero, and he was a person who was against the Ottoman Empire. So जो वहाँ पे जिस समय का जो rule था, he was against that particular Ottoman Empire. Okay, now let's talk about his work, English Bard and Scotch Reviewers. Now this work I have talked about. If you have seen my previous mock test 4 session, I have talked about this work. So what happened, there was an Edinburgh Review. ठीक है, एक Edinburgh Review था, that was a Whig journal. मैंने आपको Augustan age में बताया था that this age is also known for the political controversies. जो Augustan age में था, सबसे ज़्यादा political controversies थी, because वहाँ पे दो political party emerge हुई थी. And what were the political parties? Whig and Tories. Now जो जितने भी journal और pamphlets थे, they were divided under the Whig and Tory category. ठीक है, तो एक journal था Edinburgh Review. Okay, there was a journal named as Edinburgh Review. ठीक है, there was a journal named as Edinburgh Review, जो एक Whig journal था. ठीक है, so एक Byron ने work लिखा था Hours of Idleness. Okay, he has written the work Hours of Idleness, which was actually the collection of his lyrics, and which actually shows the love, regret and reminiscence in his particular poems. ठीक है, तो उसने work लिखा था that was criticized in the Edinburgh Review. So Byron was, as I told you, he was a very satiric man. So he became infuriated and he has written a work named as English Bard and Scotch Reviewers. ठीक है, उन्होंने जिन्होंने उसको क्रिटिसाइज करा था एडिनबर्ग रिव्यू बायरन को, उनके लिए बायरन ने इंग्लिश बार्ड एंड स्कॉच रिव्यूअर्स लिखा था जिसपे उन्होंने क्रिटिसाइज करा था. एंड एज इट वाज एक्चुअली क्रिटिसाइजिंग वर्क, so it was a satirical poem which is written by Byron and it is different in vein. Why? Because it has attacked the writers whom has attacked Byron in the work Edinburgh Review. And which writer he attacks in this particular work? He attacked Southey, Wordsworth, Coleridge and Scott. And Francis Jeffrey was also the person who is known as the originator of the Edinburgh Review. He has also criticized him in this particular work. Okay, is it clear? Fine. Next word is Manfred. So you must also have heard about Manfred. So he was a Faustian novel. As I told you, as I talked about the Faustian urge. Okay, so मैंने बताया था Tamburlaine was a person. Tamburlaine the Great is a work written by Christopher Marlowe. In that, Tamburlaine was a person or a character which is famous for the Faustian urge. And what kind of Faustian urge? What is Faustian urge? Can you let me in the chat box? I have told you what you mean by Faustian urge. Okay, can you just tell me in the chat box what do you mean by the Faustian urge? Okay, so basically Faustian urge means the urge ambition. Okay, the person is very ambitious and to achieve his goal, he can do anything. He can kill anyone, he can murder anyone, he can just indulge into theft. किसी चीज में भी indulge हो सकता है वो. He can cross any limits to actually fulfill his ambition. So that type of a urge is known as Faustian urge. So this Manfred was also a person or character in this particular work who is a Faustian novel living in Bernese Abbey. ठीक है, so he was a kind of outcast and a rebel. ठीक है, rebel you understand ना कि किसी चीज को भी मनवाने के लिए he can do anything. And internally he was actually very much affected by the guilt of his of the death of his beloved Astarte. ठीक है, so what he has done, तो जब उसको वो guilt इतनी ज्यादा थी that he summoned 7 spirits. ठीक है, और उनसे क्या मांगा, उसने मैनफ्रेड ने मांगा that I want forgetfulness. ठीक है, तो उसको गिल्ट इतनी ज्यादा ओवर पावर कर रही थी that from the spirit he asked that he should forget everything. And in the end what happens? Manfred dies, defying all the conventions of his particular time. ठीक है, so this was a story about Manfred. Yes, good morning Sonu. Okay, so are you getting it? Everyone is understanding what I am teaching? Please let me know in the chat box. In case you have doubt, you can stop me then and there itself and I'll explain it again. Fine, let's move ahead. Now Mazzipa. ये मजीबा से आपके क्वेश्चन पूछे जा चुका है. So it is a very important work. ठीक है, जो मैं चीजें बता रही हूँ, please remember about Mazzipa. So Mazzipa is also a very narrative poem written by Byron. And it is a poem in which is based on a person named as Ivan Mazzipa. So Ivan Mazzipa is a person जिसके ऊपर ये poem Mazzipa is based on. And who was Ivan Mazzipa? He was a Ukrainian gentleman. ठीक है, he was a Ukrainian gentleman. Please remember this because ये आपका क्वेश्चन नेट में आ चुका है कि जो मजीपा है, इवान मजीपा, who is Ivan Mazzipa in the work Mazzipa? So he is a Ukrainian gentleman, okay, who is also known as the gentleman of Hetmek or Ukrainian Cossacks. ठीक है, so आपको ये याद रखना है कि he is a Ukrainian gentleman. Okay, I hope you will remember this. Now this work is again very important. So मैंने सारे important works डाले जिसके आपके previous years questions आ चुके हैं. ऐसे तो बायरन ने बहुत सारे works लिखे हैं, but जिससे questions आए हैं वही वर्क मैंने इसमें important डाले हैं. ठीक है, so the vision of judgment. So मैंने आपको बताया था कि साउदी ने लिखा था a vision of judgment. ठीक है, in which as a reaction Byron has written the vision of judgment. And what kind of poem it is? It is a satirical poem. So he was famous for word satire. तो ज्यादातर आपको उसके वर्क सटायर्स ही मिलेंगे, ठीक है. एंड इन व्हाट, इन द सटारिकल पोएम, एंड इट इज रिटन इन ओटावा रीमा, ठीक है. ओटावा रीमा इज अ काइंड ऑफ अ स्टाइल इन विच दिस पोएम हैज बीन रिटन. यू शुड रिमेंबर दिस, ठीक है. ये भी क्वेश्चन है आपके किसी आई थिंक टीजीटी पीजीटी में आया था ये, कि जो ये किस वे में और किस मीटर में ये चीज लिखी गई. इट इज रिटन ओटावा मीटर और ओटावा रीमा, ठीक है. फाइन. Any problem, you can ask me in the chat box. Now, what happened in this particular work? Basically, this work is written as a word satire, or it's a satirical poem, and it's actually, based on a dispute for George III to enter into heaven. So, in Southey, in his particular work, A Vision of Judgment, he has portrayed George III's soul entering triumphantly. ठीक है, उसको वेलकम करा गया है वहां पे heaven में with good with entering heaven without any receive his due. उसको कोई punishment नहीं मिली, कुछ नहीं मिला, उसको आराम से enter होने दिया heaven में. So this was a kind of a idea which was portrayed by Robert Southey in his work A Vision of Judgment. Now after reading this book, Byron becomes very angry. ठीक है, उसको बहुत ही ज्यादा गुस्सा आया कि how this person can he was actually very much devastated for the high Tory attitude, कि इतना ज्यादा how can he portray, और कितना proudy person कैसे उसको ये चीज पोर्ट्रे कर सकता है. एंड एज अ रिएक्शन ही हैज रिटन द विजन ऑफ जजमेंट इन विच ही क्रिटिसाइज्ड the high Tory point of view, which actually this poem or the Southey has shown in his work A Vision of Judgment, and it was something directed towards Robert Southey. So you should remember this, the Vision of Judgment is a reaction to Robert Southey A Vision of Judgment. तो ये भी आपके क्वेश्चन आ चुका है. Yes, Sonu, what's your question? I'm not able to get your question. Can you just type the question again? Yes, Komal, good morning. Okay, so this was a work written by Robert Southey. Now next is Childe Harold's Pilgrimage. इससे भी आपके questions आते हैं, ठीक है. So Childe Harold's Pilgrimage is also a poem, and what kind of poem it is? It is a long poem. Okay, it is a long poem which is written in 4 cantos. ठीक है, कितने कांटों में लिखी गई है? In 4 cantos this poem has been written. Okay. In 4 cantos this poem has written Childe Pilgrimage. And what do you mean by this work? So this poem is actually describes the travel of a pilgrim through the Portugal, Spain, all these places have been, or Albania, these places from which the Childe Harold has been passed. And what do you mean by child? So this word, इसका significance पूछा जाता है आपसे question में. Now child is a kind of a medieval word, okay, which actually shows a young nobleman which is ready to become a knight. ठीक है, so ये एक जो knight person है, he is a young nobleman who is ready to become a knight. तो ये आपका, एंड जो बायरन का हीरो का ये जो आइडिया था, इट केम फ्रॉम चाइल्ड हैरोल्ड पिलग्रिमेज ओनली. ठीक है, रेडी टू बिकम अ नाइट. तो ये आपका सिग्निफिकेंस पूछा जाता है इन द वर्क चाइल्ड हैरोल्ड पिलग्रिमेज. व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ चाइल्ड? चाइल्ड मीन्स अ यंग जेंटलमैन जो नाइट बनने के लिए रेडी है. ओके, सो दिस इज काइंड ऑफ अ आइडिया हैज बीन पोर्ट्रेड बाय बायरन इन दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्क चाइल्ड हैरोल्ड पिलग्रिमेज. ठीक है, नाउ द लास्ट वर्क डॉन जुआन, इससे भी आपके क्वेश्चन आते हैं. ठीक है, सो प्लीज hear carefully what I am saying. So basically this poem is again written in 2 cantos and it is an unfinished epic satire. Just remember, it is an unfinished epic satire which is written by Byron. And it is the most criticized work of Byron because it is a satiric poem and Juan's legend portrays him as a womanizer. Okay, and this poem is written in epic form, which is an unfinished work, and it is Byron's most satirized work because the main character Don Juan has been portrayed as a womanizer. So that's why this work has been criticized by the critics. ठीक है, are you getting it? Fine. So this was all about Byron. I have tried to cover the main works and the main points of that particular works. So in case you have any doubt, you can just post in the chat box. Okay. So next, P.B. Shelley. Now this is the second poet of the second generation of the Romantic poets. Now the Shelley comes under the category known as visionary poets. ठीक है, जो इनकी कैटेगरी थी, he came under the category of a visionary poet. And do you know who are the other poets of the category visionary poets? Can you let me know in the chat box? Can you just let me know in the chat box? Do you know who are the other poets of the category visionary poets? ओके, सो विजनरी पोएट में एक तो शेले आता है, ठीक है, प्लीज मेक अ नोट ऑफ इट. नेक्स्ट इज विलियम गॉडविन, पीबी शेले, मैरी शेले, थॉमस पीकॉक, ठीक है, ले हंट एंड बायरन. दीज वर द सम राइटर्स ऑफ द category known as visionary poet, because they were actually belong to the second generation of the romantic poets, and they actually used to embrace the abstraction and passion concerning to the indulgence in poetry. Okay, and they used to, for them the romantic spirit is not something related to nature. For them the romantic spirit is a revolutionary spirit, ठीक है, and the symbolic abstraction of mysticism has been also portrayed in their particular work. ठीक है, so this was something about Shelley, and the first work that comes into the first work of Shelley is Ozymandias. Okay, so आपने 9th 10th में अपनी Ozymandias पढ़ी होगी, so you must be knowing the central idea of Ozymandias. So this is a kind of a written in a sonnet form, and it is about a decline of art. Okay, decline of leaders and the empires, and the poet claims that art is only thing that is परमानेंट. ठीक है, सो जो भी जितने बड़े बड़े वो होते हैं, एम्पायर होते हैं, बड़े बड़े किंग्स होते हैं, उनका जो आर्ट, जो स्कल्पचर बनता है, दैट ओनली रिमेन्स. ठीक है, पर्सन मर जाता है, बट उसका जो पर्सोनिफिकेशन इन द फॉर्म ऑफ राइटिंग और इन द फॉर्म ऑफ स्टैचू और एनी काइंड ऑफ इमॉर्टल थिंग, सो दैट बिकेम्स, दैट एक्चुअली स्टेज, बाकी सब चीज डिक्लाइन हो जाती है. तो दिस वाज समथिंग द टॉक्स अबाउट द इमॉर्टल नेचर ऑफ आर्ट. Okay, next is Ode to West Wind. So here it is one of the most famous work of Shelley, and it is about the revolutionary spirit which I am talking about, because Shelley जो अपनी works में होता था ज़्यादातर revolutionary political spirit आपने उसमें show करते थे. So like unlike Wordsworth and Coleridge, he doesn't used to talk about something imaginary or something related to nature. वो politics और revolutionary spirit को ज़्यादा अपने works में पोर्ट्रे करता था. तो जो भी आपको वर्क्स मिलेगा, सी क्वीन मार्प, प्रोमेथियस अनबाउंड, ये सब इसमें रेवोल्यूशनरी स्पिरिट उसने दिखाया है. ठीक है, एंड इट इज एक्चुअली टॉक्स, विंड इज पर्सोनिफाइड इन दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्क एज अ क्रिएटर ऑफ थिंग्स. ठीक है, एंड लेटर ऑन इट एक्चुअली बीन शोन एज अ समथिंग विच इज डिस्ट्रक्टिंग. ठीक है, एंड इट एंड्स, how it ends, it ends with the invocation, O heart, and wild west wind has been used as an alliteration in this particular work, Ode to the West Wind. ठीक है, समझ में आया? Next, so it is also known for the revolutionary spirit of wind, and here wind has been personified. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट इज टू अ स्काइलर. ये मैंने आपको अपने जो क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन था उसमें टू अ स्काइलर के बारे में बात करी थी, बिकॉज इट इज अ काइंड ऑफ पोएम विच इज इंस्पायर्ड बाय इवनिंग वॉक विद मैरी इन इटली. जो उसकी वाइफ थी पीबी शेले की, मैरी शेले, उसके साथ वो इवनिंग वॉक कर रहा था इन इटली, एंड वट एवर कॉन्वर्सेशन दे हैड ड्यूरिंग दैट वॉक, इट हैज बीन पोर्ट्रेड इन टू अ स्काइलर. ठीक है, ओके. Next is Queen Mab. So this work, Queen Mab, is also known for the revolutionary spirit, and it is written in a form of a fairy tale. So अगर आपको Queen Mab का nature पूछा जाएगा तो it is a kind of a fairy tale. ठीक है, ये कोई satire, कोई sonnet नहीं है. It is written in a kind of fairy tale, and it actually concerns the the person entering, or it is written in some cantos, and it actually talks about the Queen Mab, how he releases a man from the spirit and takes him with to a tour with her. Okay, so it is about a tour with Queen Mab. Next is Adonais. So Adonais is particular elegy. ठीक है, जैसे मिल्टन ने लिखा था एलिजी लिसिडस, और मुझे आपको चैट बॉक्स में बताना है कि मिल्टन ने जो एलिजी लिखी थी लिसिडस किसके लिए लिखी थी. ठीक है, कैन यू जस्ट नेम द पर्सन फॉर whom मिल्टन हैज रिटन द एलिजी लिसिडस. कैन यू जस्ट टेल मी इन द चैट बॉक्स, मिल्टन ने जो लिसिडस लिखी थी एलिजी, वो किसके लिए लिखी थी. और मुझे आप ये भी बताओ कि ये जो एडोनिस, इफ यू हैव रेड अबाउट दिस वर्क और हर्ड अबाउट दिस वर्क, ये किसकी एलिजी थी, किसके लिए लिखी थी. Can you just tell me in the chat box? Yes, can I expect a reply? Please make the class interactive so that I should also know that you are hearing me and you are enjoying the class. Okay, so basically Lycidas by Milton has been written for Edward King, जो मिल्टन का फ्रेंड था, who actually died when a ship sank in the Irish Sea of the coast of Wales. ठीक है, and ये जो Adonis थी, it is a elegy for Keats, Shelley friends Keats. ठीक है, so Keats died at a very young age, around 25 years of age he died. So उसने इतने ज़्यादा वर्क उस टाइम पे लिखे नहीं थे, and he was a great writer of his time. ठीक है, so this so Shelley has mourned the death of Keats in his work Adonais. So it is the elegy written for Keats, and you should remember that it is written in pastoral tradition, and it is also, you should remember that it is written in Spenserian stanza form. Spenserian stanza form में ये elegy लिखी गई थी. Fine. So this was all about Adonais. Next is Prometheus Unbound. तो आपने Prometheus Unbound में की जो आपकी background story, you should know that it is a kind of a work which is written by composed, or you can say composed by Shelley, in which the Prometheus is also basically defies God and gives the fire to humanity. This was something about Prometheus Unbound and a defense of poetry. ये जो डिफेंस ऑफ पोइट्री आता है, ये आपके जो, अगर आप लिटरेरी क्रिटिसिज्म पढ़ा होगा अबाउट शेले, उसमें आता है. सो दिस इज बेसिकली अ रिएक्शन टू थॉमस लव आर्टिकल द 4 एजेस ऑफ पोइट्री. ठीक है, तो इट वाज अ रिएक्शन टू थॉमस पीकॉक्स वर्क द 4 एजेस ऑफ पोइट्री. ठीक है, द 4 एजेस ऑफ पोइट्री इज अ वर्क बाय थॉमस पिकॉक, जिसके रिएक्शन में बेसिकली इसने डिफेंस ऑफ पोइट्री लिखा था शेले ने. एंड हेयर द मोस्ट फेमस यू कैन से द फ्रेज ऑफ शेले अपीयर दैट पोएट्स आर द अनएक्नॉलेज्ड लेजिस्लेचर ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. पोएट्स आर unacknowledged legislature of the world. ये जो पूरा इसका फ्रेज है, that has been written in defense of poetry against Thomas Peacock, 4 ages of poetry. Fine. Is it clear? Can I know in the chat box? Is everything clear? Please type yes if everything is clear to you. If everything is clear, please type yes in the chat box so that I can move ahead. Okay, let's move ahead now. John Keats. Now again, the last writer of the second generation of the romantic poet is John Keats, and you should remember that he is the person who is known for displaying the difference between other kinds of poems. ठीक है, so because इसकी जो poetry में you can see there was lot of sensual imagery and Hellenistic ideas. ठीक है, so Keats is famous for sensual imagery and Hellenistic ideas. ठीक है, he is famous for Hellenistic idea. Okay, just mind the spelling. Okay, now Hellenistic ideas. Okay, thank you for the response. Good morning. ओके सो हेलेनिस्टिक आइडिया ऑफ सेंट्रल इमेजरी, जो बाकी सारे रोमांटिक पोएट्स थे, आपको उनकी पोएट्री पढ़ के इतनी ज्यादा आपको योर फाइव सेंसेस डजंट कम इनटू वर्क एज बाय रीडिंग कीट्स पोएट्री, ठीक है। तो सबसे ज्यादा सेंट्रल इमेजरी कौन किसकी पोएट्री में पाई जाती थी? इट वाज इन कीट्स आउट ऑफ ऑल द रोमांटिक पोएट्स, ठीक है। तो बेसिकली कीट्स का जो मोटिव था जो रोमांटिक का, तो उसका क्या था? पहले आप इमेजिन करते हो, ठीक है, फर्स्ट यू इमेजिन, देन आपको वो आइडियलिस्टिक वर्ल्ड सोच के आपको दुख होता है, यू आर इन अ स्टेट ऑफ मेलनकली, ठीक है, यू आर अ स्टेट ऑफ मेलनकली। आपकी जैसी लाइफ चल रही है, आपने सोचा कि आपके पास 4 बंगले हैं, 2 गाड़ी हैं, and you are living a happy life, you are successful in career, you have passed the net exam, आप assistant professor बन गए हो, now you are teaching in a very good government college। तो ये सब आपका क्या imagination है, बट अगर ये चीज फुलफिल नहीं होती है, then you are in a state of melancholy, ठीक है, you become sad, you become depressed, okay, and what you do to actually, जब आपसे ये चीज झेली नहीं जाती है, then you escape the reality, ठीक है। तो आप क्या करते हो? आपके रियल वर्ल्ड से एस्केप कर जाते हो एंड यू कीप ऑन ड्रीमिंग। तो दिस वाज अ मोटिव ऑफ द रोमांटिक राइटर्स एज वेल, ठीक है। तो पहले वो इमेजिन करते थे, देन उनको सैडनेस होती थी बिकॉज द रियल वर्ल्ड इज नॉट up to the expectation of the imaginary world, and then they used to escape, and in a form of reverie they used to write these particular works. So that's why Keats writing is actually the most sensual writings of the romantic age, ठीक है। एंड उसमें क्या होता था? हेलेनिस्टिक आइडियाज भी होते थे। व्हाट आर हेलेनिस्टिक आइडियाज? तो द इमेजरी, द मोटिव्स, द थीम्स फ्रॉम द ग्रीस, ठीक है, जो भी आपकी इमेजरी, मोटिव, थीम्स फ्रॉम द ग्रीशियन लिटरेचर जो भी आती है, दैट इज एक्चुअली कंस्टिट्यूट द हेलेनिस्टिक आइडिया। एंड सबसे ज्यादा इसका जो पोर्ट्रे हुआ है हेलेनिस्टिक आइडिया का, वो हुआ है ओड ऑन एन ग्रीसियन अर्थ। यू कैन सी द ग्रीशियन लिटरेचर, यहाँ पे खुद ही नाम आ गया, तो सबसे ज्यादा इसमें यूज हुआ है, ठीक है। इज दैट क्लियर? ओके, इफ यू आर really enjoying the session, then please like the session so that to mark your attendance as well as your support and love as well for this video, ठीक है। So now okay, so this Keats was a very much complicated figure of his age, and he was criticized also, ठीक है। So he was criticized by Quarterly and Blackwood magazine, ठीक है। जो Quarterly और Blackwood magazine थी, they were Tory magazines, ठीक है। So उस magazine को Keats ने criticize करा है, and Leigh Hunt has written a poetry named as O Solitude, which is based upon Keats, ठीक है। So you should remember these facts and figures about Keats, and he belonged to the second generation of the romantic writers. Fine, let's talk about the work Endymion. Okay, so now work Endymion is also a very much talked about the Keats romantic spirit, and it is written, okay, and it is written as a kind of a you can say dedicated to his friend Chatterton, ठीक है। So जो Endymion है, it has been dedicated to his friend Chatterton. Okay, I think this color is not visible, so I'll use a different one. Fine. So it has been dedicated to Chatterton and Lockhart in his particular, and it basically talks about the poets in the Endymion is something a lover of moon. So उसका जो ये idea है, that has been portrayed in Endymion, ठीक है। Next comes his odes. Now these odes forms a very important part of your net examination, ठीक है। Why? Because ये सारे जो odes हैं, ये इसको छोड़ के here, ठीक है, ये part, ठीक है, it has been into 1819 odes. उसका एक collection था 1819 odes, उसमें ये सारे ode आते हैं, ode to Psyche, ode on a Grecian urn, ode to a nightingale, ode on melancholy, and ode to autumn, ठीक है। So maybe you have read about these ode in your UG PG as well, because these ode form a very important part of your examination, ठीक है। Now this ode to Psyche, it is the first ode which is included in the this collection 1819 odes. Fine. Next come a ode to a Grecian urn. So as I told you, that ode on a Grecian urn actually is the most famous ode of Keats, and it is written in 1819 odes collection, ठीक है। And this ode basically reflects the eternal nature of art and the fleeting nature of human being. ठीक है, and urn is described in this particular work as the foster child of silence. And what is the famous line of this Grecian urn? Can you just let me know? ये आपका क्वेश्चन भी आ चुका है नेट में कि ये लाइन किसको बिलोंग करती है, and this is a very famous line of Grecian urn. Can you let me know in the chat box? Okay, can you know, let me know the famous line of Ode to Grecian urn? So as I told you, urn has been described as a foster child of silence. ओके, सो ब्यूटी इज ट्रुथ, ट्रुथ ब्यूटी, ये सबसे फेमस फ्रेज है इसका ग्रीशियन अर्न का, तो आपको याद रखना है बिकॉज इससे क्वेश्चन आ चुका है. ब्यूटी इज ट्रुथ, ट्रुथ ब्यूटी, ये बहुत फेमस आपका इसका लाइन है, तो आपको याद रखनी है कि ये किसकी लाइन है, ये है ओड ऑन अ ग्रीशियन अर्न की. ठीक है, Let's move ahead now. Now, Ode to a Nightingale. Now, ये जो आपकी poem है, it is known for the very famous phrase which has concept which has been emerged from Keats, that is negative capability. So, what does it mean by negative capability? Can you let me know in the chat box कि आप क्या समझते हो negative capability से? What do you mean by the word negative capability? So negative capability is a concept that has been made famous by Keats, and it means that you whenever just author thinks about some imagine something, तो जितने भी doubts आते हैं, misconceptions होते हैं, uncertainties होते हैं, उसको वो as it is accept करो without applying logic or reason. So this was something the idea of negative capability, and ये सबसे ज़्यादा इसमें Ode to Nightingale में देखने को मिली थी. Now this Ode to Nightingale is a poem by Keats which is actually shows the immortal nightingale and a mortal man. So Nightingale क्या थी, वो अमर थी, that she was immortal, and the mortal man कैसा था, mortal था, वो like normal people like us. Okay, my heart aches. So this was the first line of Ode to Nightingale. My heart aches line shows that the poet escaped from reality and going in the imaginary world in a forest. So क्या करता है, as I told you, imaginary melancholy escape. So उसने imagine करा, उसको reality देख के sad feel करा, and then he escaped into a world of forest, leaving the real world behind. ठीक है, and in this work in this particular work in the forest, the man experiences the experience of paradise, and this ends with the poem when this particular mortal man returns to the real world and he mourns. ठीक है, so this was the idea of Ode to Nightingale, and you should know that this work is famous for the use of negative capability. Fine. Are you getting it? Is everything clear? Okay. Now comes Ode to Melancholy. Now this ode is again the part of 1819 odes, and you should remember that is the shortest ode of this collection. ठीक है, ये सबसे ज़्यादा shortest ode है of this collection. It is the shortest ode of this collection, and it actually uses the idea of negative capability, which has been used in Ode to Nightingale as well. And in this particular work, she dwells in beauty, beauty that must die is a famous phrase of this particular work Ode to Melancholy. She dwells in beauty, beauty that must die. ये भी आपका question net में आ चुका है, so please remember this thing. Okay. Next is Eve of St. Agnes. Okay, so this Eve of St. Agnes से भी क्वेश्चन आते हैं आपके नेट में, और ये आ भी चुका है. ठीक है, तो मैंने ये आपके क्वेश्चन अपने जो 1 PM वाले लेक्चर है उसमें भी इंक्लूड करा है. So please hear about this work carefully. Now you should know that this is a kind of a ballad. ठीक है, and what is the story of this particular poem? So basically on a bitterly chilly night, तो बहुत ज़्यादा ठंड वाली रात थी, it was a very chilly night, and there one ancient person, or you can say the ancient beadsman was performing his penances. And what happened? एंड दिस वॉज वन साइड, ये एक पार्ट का स्टोरी था. दूसरी साइड में क्या चल रहा था? इन द कैसल ऑफ मेडलिन वॉर लाइक राइवलरी और यू कैन से फ्यूड वॉज एक्चुअली गोइंग ऑन. ओके, एंड दो फैमिलीज में राइवलरी थी, बट जो एक फैमिली की जो मेडलिन थी एंड दूसरे फैमिली का जो पोर्फिरियो था, दे वर इन लव एंड देयर फैमिलीज वाज नॉट रेडी टू एक्सेप्ट देयर love. Now what happened, there was a person who actually advised Mandolin that if she sleeps on time on this night, she will have a reverie of his of her lover. ठीक है, उसको ड्रीम आएगा लवर में, एंड देन शी डज द सेम, वो सोने चली जाती है एंड शी हैज अ ड्रीम ऑफ पोर्फिरियो प्रपोजिंग हर मैरिज. एंड व्हाट हैपेंड, when she wakes up, Porfirio and this Mandolin runs away. So ये that dream is all about the eve of Saint Agnes. ठीक है, so ये एक myth है कि जब eve of Saint Agnes पे if a lady sleeps on time, she will have a dream of her lover. So यहाँ पे भी Mandolin was a woman who actually slept on the eve of Saint Agnes and she had a dream of her lover Porfirio. This was the all about the eve of Saint Agnes. So you can see the medieval idea has been brought into play in the Eve of St. Agnes by John Keats. Okay, next is To Autumn. It's again a part of 1819 ode and it shows the various phases of this particular season. So it shows basically the progression of season from late maturity to the when the crops are harvested. ठीक है, so when the crops are ripened and when the crops are sown, तो उसके बीच period जो maturation का होता है, that has been showed or in autumn, and here autumn has been personified. ठीक है, next is La Dame's Belle Dame Sans Mercy. So it is the kind of a ballad. ठीक है, it is a French ballad which is the meaning of this particular La Belle Dame Sans Mercy means beautiful lady without mercy. ठीक है, ये एक French title है जिसका English में meaning होता है a beautiful lady without mercy. Mercy. Okay, so you should remember one point of this कि ये जो La Belle Dame Sans Mercy है, it has been inspired from the sonnet of Coleridge Love. ठीक है, तो Coleridge ने एक वर्क लिखा था Love, that has been inspired from his wife सारा हचिंगटन. ठीक है, तो उस पर्टिकुलर लव सोनेट से कीट्स ने इंस्पायर होके La Belle Dame Sans Mercy लिखा था. ठीक है, is this clear? Okay, so if you are just enjoying the session, please like the session. Okay, next let's move ahead. Jane Austen. Now we have talked about the first generation and the second generation of poets. Now if I talk about romantic age, then Jane Austen also forms a very important part. Now in this particular time, 18th century women were not allowed to write novels. ठीक है, so उनको ये जो space था वो किसी ने दिया नहीं था, and the male writers has dominated this age. Now when Jane Austen arrived, ठीक है, तो उसने क्या कहा कि no, the why males should be given the right the space for writing, why women are not given the space, because उसमें क्या था कि वहाँ पे भी soul earning male की writing से होती थी and females are not independent. Now Jane Austen actually propagated this idea that women should be independent. Okay, and for her that's why marriage was the only way for her for her protagonist to actually have a independence. ठीक है, तो उनको love priority नहीं थी. Love was the second priority of Jane Austen. The first priority क्या थी? Marriage. तो उसके हर novels में आप देखोगे that marriage has given the most priority for women to actually earn independence. ठीक है, and जो उस समय 18th century में जो women writers emerge हुई थी, they never used to write in their sole name. जैसे Jane Austen है, तो उसके जो initial works थे, that was not published under the name of Jane Austen. They were always published under the pseudonym. Because क्या होता था कि अगर किसी को पता चलेगा कि ये जो वर्क है एक फीमेल राइटर ने लिखा है, nobody will read that work. Because females were actually taken as docile, meek, shy, or not timid. तो उनको लगता था कि इनमें इतना ज़्यादा कैलिबर नहीं है एक अच्छा वर्क लिखने का. एंड वर्क अच्छा कौन लिख सकता है? Only male writers. So that's why they used to use pseudonyms, पेन नेम यूज करती थी so that the identity of a male or female cannot be discerned from that particular name. ठीक है. And ये जो propagation of writing for the women writers का ये किसने start करा था? It was started by Jane Austen. Later on Bronte sisters come, then George Eliot came. All these writers came after Jane Austen. Fine, is this clear? Okay. So let's talk about Jane Austen. So basically Jane Austen is a very important writer of this age, and he was a daughter of clergyman, and she was not being sent to university or school for education, and her whole education was done at home. She was a novelist of manners. You should remember this point. She was a novelist of manners. So manners, morals, all these things has been portrayed. So उनकी जो आप अगर उनकी female protagonist देखोगे work के, so they are always very mannered, cultured, a kind of a lady. Okay, so वो सारा demeanor सारे इनकी female protagonists follow करती थी. That's why she is known as a novel of manners, and she kept within the rigid boundaries. उसको कोई worldly experience नहीं था कि वो बाहर जाके she is experiencing in that world she is portraying in its work. Only from staying at home within the boundaries, within the four walls, she used to write her novels. And that's why she is though she was constricted to four walls, but her novelist, as a novelist of character and manners, her characters range widely as women. ठीक है. तो उनको women में जो 18th century की जो women थी, that was portrayed in her works. ठीक है. Also, she has been compared to Shakespeare, but she had none of her actually poetry that was actually given the faint glimpse of the deeper understanding of tragedy of life. So that's why she was maybe initially compared to Shakespeare, but later on this idea was actually denounced, because her in her poetry, on you can say, sorry, in her works, you cannot it has not been shown the deeper connection to tragedy of life. ठीक है. So this is the first work, Sense and Sensibility. So as I told you, these writers never used to publish their work in their own name. What they used to use, they used to use pseudonyms or their pen names. ठीक है. So this is the work which is published, starting initial phase of Jane Austen as a writer, and this work was published under the pseudonym of a lady. Question of net, ये आपके डायरेक्ट मैच द कॉलम्स में आया था. प्लीज मैच द pseudonyms of the works of the writers. So Sense and Sensibility has been written under the pseudonym of a lady, and it is the novel of comedy of manners, and it portrays Dashwood sisters. So who were the main characters of this particular? Eleanor and Marine was the main character, and they come under the category of Dashwood sisters. ठीक है. आ रहा है समझ में? Please type in the chat box yes if you are getting everything which I am teaching. In case any problem, you can just post in the chat box. I will answer your doubts. Okay, fine. ठीक है. So this was the first work, Sense and Sensibility, which was published under the pseudonym A Lady. Now Pride and Prejudice, ये तो मूवी भी है, आपने देखी भी होगी. ये जो Pride and Prejudice is a famous movie, and it is actually और इनिशियली द टाइटल क्या था इसका? फर्स्ट इम्प्रेशंस. ठीक है. सो ये इसका फर्स्ट टाइटल नहीं था. फर्स्ट टाइटल क्या था इसका? फर्स्ट इम्प्रेशंस. ओके. फर्स्ट इम्प्रेशन इज द इनिशियल टाइटल ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्क. Thank you Devendra Prasad for the response. Okay, so you should remember this कि ये जो उसका first title था, and what character it is introduced. आपको पता है क्या आप मुझे chat box से बता सकते हैं कि Pride and Prejudice का दो main characters बताइए. If you have watched the movie and read the work, because it is a very famous work. Do you know the two main characters of Pride and Prejudice? Can you let me know in the chat box? Okay, so I'll tell you that. So Pride and Prejudice के दो main characters थे, and Elizabeth and Darcy. ठीक है. And it shows that how a young lady, that is Elizabeth, of thoughtful and critical disposition, encounters the haughtiness of a gentleman, that is Darcy. And what events follow that finally they fall in love with her, and incidents occur which actually deepens his prejudice and intensifies his pride, but eventually they got married, and they are actually united in the end. Okay, so this is how prejudice represents what? Prejudice represents Elizabeth. Okay, Elizabeth Bennet, and pride represents Darcy. Okay, how this prejudice of Elizabeth and Darcy of pride of Darcy intensifies and events follow and they are united in the end. So this is a happy kind of a story where lovers first hate each other, don't like each other, they encounter each other, they come to know each other, and in the end they fall in love and got united. So ये आपकी typical एक romance love story है जो आप theatres में देखने जाते हो. ठीक है, so this is all about Pride and Prejudice. ठीक है, next is Emma. एमा भी एक बॉलीवुड अडेप्टेशन आपने उसका देखा होगा, दैट एमा मैन्सफील्ड पार्क, फर्स्ट कम्स द मैन्सफील्ड पार्क. सो मैन्सफील्ड पार्क इज अ वर्क अगेन बाय Jane Austen, and it elaborates the same kind of togetherness, or you can say the romance or the contrast, the complete history of marriage of the female characters in Jane Austen novels. And who was the eldest person? Fanny Price. इसमें भी मैरिज वॉज द मेन मोटिव. ये सब इनका लगता था प्रोटैगनिस्ट को कि इफ दे विल मैरी दे विल गेट फाइनेंशियल स्टेबिलिटी और इंडिपेंडेंस, एंड दैट्स व्हाई लव वॉज द सेकेंड थिंग फॉर देम. First thing is marriage. To find a suitable match to your daughter was the main concern of the mothers or your aunts of these particular works. ठीक है, आया समझ में? Now Emma. Mansfield Park के बारे में पढ़ना. It is again a similar stories like other things. Emma. So can you just tell me the Bollywood adaptation of Emma in the chat box? Do you know what is the Bollywood adaptation of Emma? Yes, can I expect an answer in the chat box? Please tell me what is the Bollywood adaptation of the work Emma. You must have studied about the Emma, and ये भी एक Bollywood adaptation है जिसमें Sonam Kapoor was the main cast of this particular work. Can you just let me know in the chat box Bollywood adaptation of the work Emma? Okay, so I'll tell you that. So Aisha is the movie by in which stars Sonam Kapoor as a main lead, and she has been under the category of Emma. Okay, and there was Bobby Deol, Sunny Deol, and her third brother. I know I'm not getting the name. So that Deol brother has Abhay Deol. Yes, very good. Abhay Deol has portrayed the is under the character of Mr. Knightley. ठीक है? Please watch this movie if you don't want to read the novel. So आप movie देख सकते हो, and you can understand the basic plot of Emma. So now this Emma is a novel by Jane Austen, who was a clever and a well-satisfied young woman in the डॉटर ऑफ मिस्टर वुडहाउस. तो मिस्टर वुडहाउस की वो डॉटर होती थी, एंड उसका जो मेन टास्क था, उसका मोटिव को लाइफ में उसका सिर्फ एक ही मोटिव था, दैट शी शुड बी एक्चुअली अरेंजिंग मैच. तो वो मैच मेकिंग में बहुत ज़्यादा इंटरेस्ट रखती थी, एंड शी यूज टू फाइंड सुटेबल मैच फॉर डिफरेंट वुमेन एंड मैन इन हिज ऑफ हर नोन. ठीक है, तो उसने एक विमेन को अपने अंडर लिया, दैट इज हैरियट स्मिथ, एंड शी वॉज एक्चुअली हाउ शी फाउंड द सुटेबल मैच, what consequences follow, क्या क्या scenes होते थे, क्या क्या conflicts हुए. So this was the story Emma all about, and in the end she herself marries Mr. Knightley. ठीक है? Now Northanger Abbey. Now this Northanger Abbey is known for, it actually portrays the Gothic side of English romanticism. ठीक है, आपने अगर Gothic literature पढ़ा होगा, उसमें आपको बहुत strange things दिखेगी. Fear, there were fear, there was something very out of the box चीज़ें वहाँ पे चीज़ें होती थी. तो that was something a Gothic romance, and this has been portrayed in Northanger Abbey. It is one of the second last work of Jane Austen, and the last work is Persuasion. ठीक है, so ये दोनों novel लिखी गई थी in the later phase of Jane Austen, and this basically it shows the story of Catherine visit to the Northanger Abbey, which she actually expects to a dark Gothic place after reading Anne Radcliffe's The Mystery of Udolpho and the Italian. So Anne Radcliffe is a Gothic writer जो Gothic romance का लिखती थी, and her two works are there, The Mystery of Udolpho, and The Italian. So these two works are there, and the Catherine, which is the main character of this work, Northanger Abbey, वो ये दो books पढ़ती थी, and she actually designed her own Gothic state. ठीक है, so that's why she visits Northanger Abbey, which she expected to be the Gothic state, as that was shown in Anne Radcliffe's The Mystery of Udolpho and The Italian. Okay, and just remember one thing, that it is a satire on Gothic romances. Okay, this is a kind of a satire on Gothic romances. बस आपको ये याद रखना है, ठीक है, और ये बुक्स याद रखनी है. Yes, very good. It is related to Gothic. Okay, which is a very dark romance, you can say, the dark estate. All these have been portrayed in Gothic romances. Now, The Persuasion, it is an unfinished work by Jane Austen, and it was written just after, it was published with Northanger Abbey, and it is kind of a tender love story which is touched by pathos. Okay, so it's a pathos. It is a love story when you feel melancholy. So all these has been portrayed in The Persuasion, and just remember that it is an unfinished work. Okay, sorry, it is not an unfinished work, it is a last completed work. And Lady Susan, which was published after that, was an unfinished work. This is a last completed work of Jane Austen. Fine. Okay, let's move ahead now. That was all about Jane Austen. Now comes the Victorian age. Now with this, I have completed the Romantic age. I have touched upon the important authors and their work. Now it's time to study about Victorian age. As I told you that Romantic age started with the publishing of lyrical ballads that was written by Wordsworth and Coleridge. ठीक है, और lyrical ballads में कितनी poems थी? Lyrical ballads में 23 poems थी. 19 were written by Wordsworth. 4 were written by Coleridge. First poem कौन सी थी? The Rime of Ancient Mariner by Coleridge, and the last was Tintern Abbey. So with the publication of lyrical ballads, it marked the avant-garde movement in Romanticism, and it led to the decline of Augustan age. ठीक है, but when the Queen Victoria, ठीक है, Queen Victoria, when she came to throne in 1837, then the new period began, which is known as the Victorian age. ठीक है, so Queen Victoria was a ruler, and that's why under her name this age started, Victorian age. Okay, and what was the period timeline? 1832 to 1900 is known as the Victorian period. Is it clear? Okay, now let's talk about its records, a period of economic expansion. How it led to the economic expansion. Now what happened during this period? That age is also known as the rapid development of the novel. ठीक है, because due to industrialization there was a widespread interest in the reading public. Okay, and because of exploitation of the rural class or the lower classes, you can say the middle class rose to power. ठीक है, and its importance, and the Victorian age began that's why Victorian age is known for the economic expansion. जो economic class थी, the middle class थी, उसको power मिला, and they rose to power, and that's why this age also records the economic expansion. ठीक है, after industrialization. Okay, next is growth of libraries. Now this actually, this age, there was a widespread interest in reading. Okay, and that lead to the growth of libraries, and these writings were divided into two classes. One who were actually showing, or you can say that they were in the favor of the social realism, and other are exporting, or you can say that supporting actually Victorian fiction. ठीक है, so एक थी तो social class जो economic expansion जो middle class को show कर रही थी, and एक क्या था जो that was supporting Victorian fiction, the high class. Okay, the high maidens or high ladies or elite class that was showing. ठीक है, that was Victorian fiction. So that lead to growth of libraries. Yes, commoners, very good. Okay, so that was led to growth of libraries. Now there was one more writer, Charles Darwin, who has written The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, and इसका आपसे ईयर पूछा जाता है कि किस ईयर में ये वर्क लिखा गया था. It was written in 1859. ठीक है, चार्ल्स डार्विन का वर्क The Origin of Species by Natural Selection was written in 1859 and it talks about the concept of survival of the fittest. ठीक है, जो सबसे fit होगा that will survive, and जो उस period के हिसाब से fit नहीं होगा that will not be able to habitat in that particular surrounding, that will be eliminated by the nature. So this was about survival of fittest. And also you should remember that this term was coined by H. Spencer, but it was Darwin who made it popularized. ठीक है, ये जो survival of fittest का जो concept था that was coined by H. Spencer and Darwin ने इसको popularize और ये famous बनाया था. Fine. Is this clear? Anything you want to add, you can add, or anything you don't and have not understood, you can ask me in the chat box. ठीक है? Fine. Charles Dickens. Now, Charles Dickens is one of the most famous Victorian novelists, and his success came when he published the first work, that is Sketches by Boz. ये बॉस जो है ये सूडोनिम है, ठीक है. लाइक जेन ऑस्टन की जो फर्स्ट बुक थी सेंस एंड सेंसिबिलिटी, इट वाज पब्लिश्ड अंडर द सूडोनिम अ लेडी. सिमिलरली चार्ल्स डिकेंस ने भी अपने इनिशियल वर्क जो स्केचेस था उसमें उसने सूडोनिम यूज करा था, दैट इज बॉस. क्वेश्चन पूछा जा चुका है मैच द कॉलम्स में, मैच द सूडोनिम ऑफ डिफरेंट राइटर्स. सो बॉस वाज आल्सो देयर, सो यू शुड रिमेंबर चार्ल्स डिकेंस का सूडोनिम इनिशियल टाइम में क्या था, बॉस. ठीक है. Okay, now the first is Pickwick paper. So Charles Dickens used to actually portray the the common class and the poor society. ठीक है, जो class है, and it characters range from a wide variety of things. Basically some are very romantic images and the detailed account of the class conflict भी वो देता था कि कैसे ये जो क्लास है, लोअर क्लास और अपर क्लास, दे आर इंटरेक्टिंग इन द सोसाइटी. दिस रियल अकाउंट ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हैज बीन पोर्ट्रेड इन द वर्क्स ऑफ चार्ल्स डिकेंस. ओके, सो लेट्स टॉक अबाउट पिकविक. आपको ये जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, क्लास कॉन्फ्लिक्ट दिखेगा, ये आपके उसको हर वर्क्स में दिखेगा, एंड द एक्सप्लॉयटेशन ऑफ द लोअर क्लास and the fate of the children of this lower class has been portrayed in all his works. ठीक है. Now the first work comes is Pickwick Papers. Now it is also known as Adventures of Samuel Pickwick. ठीक है. ठीक है, तो ये इसका टाइटल, फुल टाइटल है. पिकविक पेपर इज नॉट द फुल टाइटल. फुल टाइटल क्या है, एडवेंचर्स ऑफ सैमुअल Pickwick. And what is the story of all about? Basically it recounts the story of a person, or you can president of the Pickwick Club, Samuel Pickwick, and his journey to the countryside. All these things has been portrayed in this work. Okay, so this the main character of this was Samuel Pickwick is basically a kind and a wealthy gentleman, and is the founder of this club, the Pickwick Club. He is the founder of that particular club. Okay, Devnat Prasad, pseudonym means the false name. ठीक है, suppose my name is Akarshi, अगर मैं अपना नाम बताऊँ सरिता या फिर मेघा, and I publish a name, a work by my name like Megha, Sarita, whatever it is. So this is my not the real identity. ठीक है, pseudonym means pen name, that is a false name. जो आप suppose आपका name है देवेंद्र, ठीक है, now you actually put your name as Rahul somewhere, so that is a pseudonym because you don't want to reveal your actual identity. आप अपनी असलियत, अपना real identity दिखाना नहीं चाह रहे हो, that's why you use a false name, a pseudonym to actually conceal your identity. Is this clear? Please let me know in the chat box. Okay, as I told you, these writers were not actually accepted as it is. So in the initial days, used to use false name to know the interest of the reading public. Okay, so then afterwards, when their work started getting famous, then they used to publish their work in the original name. Is this clear, Devendra? Okay, let's move ahead now. Fine. ऑलिवर ट्विस्ट ना, ये ऑलिवर ट्विस्ट तो आपने पढ़ी होगी बिकॉज इट्स अ वेरी famous novel of Charles Dickens and it is concerned with an orphan. And who was an orphan in this particular work? Oliver. Okay, so Oliver is an orphan who went to London where he met a dodger. Okay, and he was a head of the criminal society and he became the part of it. So this novel is a comment on the poor city children after the enactment of Poor Law Act. So कैसे कैसे इन जो poor children का फेट होता था, कैसे इनकी सिचुएशंस होती थी, व्हाट दे हैड टू फेस, कैसे इनका एक्सप्लॉयटेशन होता था, ऑल दीज थिंग्स हैज बीन पोर्ट्रेड इन ओलिवर ट्विस्ट with the help of the character Oliver Twist. ठीक है, तो जो ओलिवर ट्विस्ट इसका मेन कैरेक्टर भी है, उसी कैरेक्टर पे ही ये नॉवेल का भी नाम है ओलिवर ट्विस्ट. ओके ओके, नेक्स्ट इज डॉम्बे एंड सन. ये क्वेश्चन आ चुका है नेट में डॉम्बे एंड सन से आपके, सो यू शुड रीड दिस नॉवेल एंड मेक योर नोट्स. ठीक है, सो दिस डॉम्बे एंड सन बेसिकली द स्टोरी कंसर्न द पॉल डॉम्बे, ओके, हु वाज अ वेल्दी ओनर ऑफ अ शिपिंग कंपनी अंडर द नेम डॉम्बे एंड सन. ठीक है, सो ये मेन कैरेक्टर इसका था, इसका नाम क्या था? उसका नाम था पॉल डॉम्बे. Okay, Paul Dombey was the main character in this novel who runs a company under the name Dombey and Sons and whose dream is to have a son to run his business. ठीक है, so this was a whole plot about Dombey and Sons. जो Paul Dombey था वो किसका कंपनी का मालिक था? वो मालिक था the shipping company Dombey and Sons and his dream was to have a son to actually who will run his business. And what were the consequences followed after that? What was the plot? Just read about it. And also remember the book begins with his son, and it basically Dombey wife dies shortly after the son's birth. ठीक है, तो पहले उस बुक की स्टार्टिंग में सन का बर्थ होता है, आफ्टर दैट हिज वाइफ डाइज. ठीक है, दिस वाज ऑल अबाउट डॉम्बे एंड सन. इससे आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछा गया था कि व्हाट इज डॉम्बे एंड सन सिग्निफाइज. सो इट इज बेसिकली द नेम ऑफ द शिपिंग कंपनी बाय पॉल डॉम्बे. फाइन, नेक्स्ट इज डेविड कॉपरफील्ड. सो डेविड कॉपरफील्ड सबसे पहला पॉइंट आएगा, इट इज नोन एज बिल्डिंग्सरोमान नॉवल. ठीक है, इट इज अ बिल्डिंग्सरोमान नॉवल. नाउ व्हाट इज द मीन बाय बिल्डिंग्सरोमान? बिल्डिंग्सरोमान नॉवल मीन्स विच इज शोज द ग्रोथ ऑफ द कैरेक्टर. ठीक है, कैसे ग्रोथ होता है कि पहले आप कुछ नहीं थे, you were nothing in front of the society, but as you face circumstances, as you have experienced in life, आप experience कर करके you are somewhere else. ठीक है, जैसे आप अपने बात करो कि like you were in 12th standard or you were in first year of your college. ठीक है, then you were nothing at that point of time. No, in 12th you were nothing, then you got good marks, then you entered the college, good college, you studied well, आपकी डिग्री अच्छी थी, and with that you get into some masters also in a very good college. आपने पढ़ाई करी, then you have qualified नेट क्वालिफाई करके आप असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर बन गए. ठीक है, सो नाउ व्हेन यू कंपेयर योर जर्नी कि आप 12th में कुछ भी नहीं थे, यू वर जस्ट अ स्टूडेंट, बट नाउ यू आर असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर वर्किंग इन अ वेरी गुड गवर्नमेंट यूनिवर्सिटी. सो इट शोज योर ग्रोथ. सो जहाँ पे भी किसी भी नॉवल में अगर ग्रोथ शो होता है व्हेन द कैरेक्टर वाज 0 एंड नाउ इट इज 100 or 90, so that kind of a growth is known as Bildungsroman novel. Similarly, David Copperfield में भी David was nothing, he was a normal character, but how with the help of his aunt Betsy, he actually grow in life and become and reaches a good place in his life. So this kind of a novel is known as Bildungsroman novel. Also remember this novel, David Copperfield, is also considered as a pseudo autobiography of Charles Dickens. सूडो ऑटोबायोग्राफी ऑफ चार्ल्स डिकेंस. तो इसको सूडो ऑटोबायोग्राफी भी बोलते हैं. ठीक है, आर यू गेटिंग इट? फाइन, सो दिस इज जस्ट रिमेंबर दैट इट्स अ बिल्डिंग्सरोमान नॉवल. अभी हम शार्लेट ब्रॉन्टे भी पढ़ेंगे, तो उसमें जो उसकी वर्क है जेन आयर, दैट इज ऑल्सो अ बिल्डिंग्सरोमान novel. So you should remember this. Now this Bleak House is a kind of a satire. And किस पे satire था? Old School of Chancery में. And उसकी हीरोइन का नाम क्या है? एस्थर समरसन. Esther Summerson is the name of the heroine, which is actually considered as an orphan and also considered as a Dickensian saint. ठीक है, तो आपको याद रखना है, ये आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछा गया था, in which of the following work Esther Summerson is a character. So she is a character in the work Bleak House by Dickens. Okay. Last is Hard Times. Hard Times है, so Hard Times में you should remember that it is a work by Charles Dickens, which is also has a subtitle For These Times. ठीक है, इसका subtitle क्या है? For These Times. Okay, For These Times is the subtitle of this particular work, and it is divided into 3 parts. Book 1 shows sowing, book 2 shows reaping, and book 3 shows garnering. ठीक है, book 1 sowing, book 2 reaping, and book 3 garnering. So this has 3 books which actually have a title of these 3. ठीक है, and it is a book which has a subtitle For These Times. ठीक है, you should remember this. Now the Tale of Two Cities, इससे भी question आता है कि what were the 2 cities which has been talked about in the Tale of Two Cities? Then the 2 cities name is Paris and London. ठीक है, कौन सी cities हैं? Paris एंड लंडन. तो बस आपको ये याद रखना है, टेल ऑफ 2 सिटीज में जो 2 सिटीज की बात करी गई है, इट इज पेरिस एंड लंडन, एंड इट एक्चुअली शोज द पीरियड ऑफ फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन. ठीक है, फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन को दिखाया गया है इन दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्क. Fine, are you getting it? Okay, if you're just liking the session, then please like the session. Okay, so that I also get boost up that you are enjoying it. ठीक है? Okay, next is George Eliot. Now George Eliot is also a person who were writing in this period of time, and she is a person and he's an English novelist which actually shows the new depths of social realism and philosophical concern. ठीक है, उसकी जो novels होती थी, it was set in something, you know, rural society, and it actually touches on basically the major issues of the day. Okay, and her novel are largely set in the realistical society, which is actually the realistic presentation location of the Middle Ages or Midlands of particular of that England. ठीक है, so इसकी जो novels होती थी, it shows the Midlands. इसका अगेन एक सूडोनेम हुआ करता था. एंड व्हाट इज द सूडोनेम ऑफ जॉर्ज एलियट? डू यू नो दैट? व्हाट इज द सूडोनेम ऑफ जॉर्ज एलियट? And social issues, social conflicts has been again shown in this particular work of George Eliot, and it shows also, as I told you, shows the Midlands of areas of his childhood. तो अपने वो childhood से relate करके he used to set the setting of that particular novels which he used to depict in that all his works. ठीक है, and can you just tell me what was the main or pseudonym of George Eliot? Can you just let me know? ये भी आपका क्वेश्चन पूछा जा चुका है फॉर योर काइंड इन्फॉर्मेशन नेट में कि अगेन द मैच द कॉलम्स में आया था व्हाट इज द सूडोनेम, और बोला वो ऑप्शन दे रखा था, यू हैव टू जस्ट मैच द विद द राइटर. Can you just let me know in the chat box what is the pseudonym of George Eliot? Okay, the pseudonym is Mary Ann Evans. ठीक है, Mary Ann Evans is a pseudonym of George Eliot, and ये आप the match the columns में आ चुका है question, so please mark it important. Now her first work is Adam Bede. Okay, so Adam Bede is basically a work by George Eliot, and its action takes place during the close of 18th century. Okay, then Hetty Sorrel is the main character who has been corrupted by or loved by Adam Bede, who was a village carpenter, and Arthur Donington, who is the person who corrupts her. ठीक है, so Hetty Sorrel was in love with Adam Bede, and Arthur Donington actually proposed a marriage to her, and later on he deserted her, and this actually shows the devastation or devastated state of Hetty Sorrel. So you should remember the main character, that is Hetty Sorrel, who is loved by Adam Bede, who was a village carpenter. Fine, is it clear? Okay, let's talk about the Mill on the Floors. So Mill on the Floors भी आपने पढ़ी होगी, and it actually, you must be knowing that it actually is a novel of the sibling of the Tulliver family, that is Tom and Maggie. ठीक है, and Tom was very ignorant person, okay, who never used to give any heed to anyone's emotion, and Maggie in the particular, who is actually an intellectual and an emotional person. And what conflict lead to the both the siblings is the story The Mill on the Floor all about. ठीक है, so किसकी story है ये? It is a story about Tom and Maggie, and it actually concerns about the fate of the Tulliver family. Okay, next is Silas Marner. So आपके 11th 12th में Silas Marner as a complimentary book आपकी होगी. So Silas Marner is again a work by George Eliot, and here Silas Marner is the main character who was a linen weaver driven into the small theft, okay, and ultimately it led to his banishment from the society, and he went again to a place where he started weaving. So that was something about Silas Marner. Then Romola. Okay, so Romola is also a main work by George Eliot, and it is just, you have to just remember the point that it is a historical novel. Okay, it is a historical novel. Okay, are you getting it? Please type yes in the chat box. You are understanding things which I am teaching. Okay, so it is a historical novel. Next is Daniel Deronda. It is again an important work of George Eliot, and it is supposed to be the last, which actually shows the Victorian society. Okay, and it is the last novel by George Eliot. So it is basically a depiction of contemporary Victorian society. So contemporary Victorian society आपको इसमें दिखाई जाती है, and it is the last novel by George Eliot. It is the last novel by George Eliot. Okay, let's move ahead now. Let's talk about Bronte sisters. So you must be knowing that these Bronte sisters, which emerged during the Victorian period, marked the novels which are full of passion. Okay, show the passion of women. And who are these Bronte sisters? Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, and Anne Bronte. Okay, these were the three sisters under the Bronte sisters title, and they actually shows the growth and growth of the novel, and they shows the position of women in that particular society. Okay, and so they were not they actually changed the pattern of writing in the way where the women are also allowed to portray their passion. So as compared to Jane Austen novels, here the marriage was the sole security for women. But in the Bronte sister novel, passionate side of women are actually also executed in the novel. Jane Austen अपनी novel से कभी भी women protagonist का passion नहीं दिखाती थी, because that was not considered moral, ethical in that society. But these Bronte sisters changed the pattern of writing, and they started showing the passionate side of women as well. Okay? The women can also have passion, the women can also have liking, and love was the sole theme of these particular writers. Okay? Now Charlotte Bronte. Okay, so the Charlotte Bronte becomes the first sister of the Bronte sister trilogy, and she was a daughter of the Irishman, and she actually was portrayed in the Lowood setting has been portrayed in his particular work. And also she never used to write in her own name, she used to use pseudonym as well, Currer Bell. Currer Bell is a pseudonym under which she used to write her writings. ठीक है, and उसका first work क्या था? The Professor was her first work, and Lowood is the setting of basically most of his novel. And Lowood is the depiction of the school in which she has studied. Okay, so कोई imaginary world नहीं था, उसने जो school में वो बचपन में पढ़ी थी, she has only portrayed these in her works. Now the first is Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre is again considered to be a Bildungsroman novel. मैंने आपको बताया था कि Bildungsroman का मतलब क्या होता है? It shows the growth of the character. ठीक है, so and also Jane was portrayed as a person who grows in that particular novel, and Jane begins life as an orphan. Then she actually becomes how she has faced the difficulties, and finally becomes the governess. Okay, and finally he fell in love with Rochester and married him in the end. So this shows the growth of Jane Eyre in this particular novel. Now Shirley. Shirley is again a work of Charlotte Bronte, which is actually shows the theme of industrial revolution. Okay, industrial impact on the Victorian society or on the women in society. This was shown in Shirley. ठीक है, तो इसका impact of industrial society or industrial revolution has been shown, or what was the impact on the women at that point of time. It has been shown in Shirley. Now Willet. Now Willet is a novel which is third work written by Charlotte Bronte, and the novel is actually based on his visit or the memoirs of Brussels. ठीक है, so she has visited Brussels, and उसका जो क्या क्या उसने experience करा था, whatever experience she had in Brussels, she has portrayed that in her work Willet. ठीक है, fine. Now Emily Bronte has written Wuthering Heights. ठीक है, so Emily Bronte is also a sister of Charlotte Bronte, and she is second daughter in the category of Bronte sisters. And Emily has a pen name also. This is Alice Bell. ठीक है, वो भी अपना pseudonym यूज करती थी because women were not accepted as writers, so that's why these women used to use pseudonym to publish their work. And it is a emotional love story which actually shows the immoral passion of the protagonist Heathcliff. ठीक है, Heathcliff was the main protagonist who was in love with Catherine, but Catherine was never never wanted to approve the love of Heathcliff because he was an orphan. So this made Heathcliff infuriated, and then revenge order begins. He became so infuriated that he used to take revenge from everyone. So that's why it is a story about a moral passion for love. And just remember, this story has two narrators. Okay, दो narrator है. First is Mr. Lockwood, and the second is Nellie Dean. ठीक है, इसमें दो narrator है. First half, the framework has been narrated by Mr. Lockwood, and the second, Nellie Dean, has been the narrator who was the servant. ठीक है. Also remember this Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre is the first novel where the protagonist has addressed the readers directly. Readers, I married him. So this was the first time that a female protagonist has addressed the readers directly. And in which novel it happened? It happened in Jane Eyre. This is a very important point and a previous year question as well. So you should remember that. Fine. Next, Anne Bronte. Okay. So Anne Bronte is a writer of Bronte sister. So is a writer who is also come under the Bronte sister category, and इसका pseudonym था Acton Bell. Acton Bell was a pseudonym, and she has written two works, Agnes Grey and The Tenant of Windfellow. Just titles आपसे पूछ जाते हैं, इससे ज़्यादा deeply आपसे नहीं पूछा जाता, ठीक है? Okay. Next comes Thomas Hardy. Now Thomas Hardy, you must be knowing that he was a writer of Victorian age. Okay, so आप मुझे बता सकते हो कुछ famous work Thomas Hardy का you must have read about, and can you just let me know the main setting of the work of Thomas Hardy? Okay, please tell me in the chat box what is the main setting of the works of Thomas Hardy. Okay, please let me know in the chat box what is the main setting of the works of Thomas Hardy. बिकॉज ये आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछा जा चुका है इन योर प्रीवियस ईयर नेट एग्जाम, तो आपको पता होना चाहिए कि उसका जो मेन सेटिंग है दैट इज वेसेक्स. ओके, सो उसकी ज़्यादातर नॉवेल्स में आपको वेसेक्स की सेटिंग मिलती है, एंड इट इज इमेजिनरी place which is actually portrayed in Thomas Hardy work. And he was a Victorian poet who was buried in Poets Corner. And Thomas Hardy basically was a very good novelist and had little in wit with the avant-garde movement. And he has shown the two departures from the Victorian sentiments. ठीक है, First was that he used to portray, he was not very connected to nature, ठीक है, उसको क्या वो reality portray करता था. His characters used to suffer a lot, and with the experience they used to learn. Okay, कोई outsider आके, कोई nature, कोई third party आके character को नहीं सलाह देता था, वो अपने experience से character सीखता था. So that was something, not very un-Victorian portrayal of characters were there in his works. ठीक है, so let's talk about his works. Far from the maddening crowd. ठीक है, so आप मुझे बताओ कि जो Far from the maddening crowd है कि किस वर्क से ये टाइटल लिया गया है. मैंने आपको ये ऑगस्टिन एज में पढ़ाया था, so you must be knowing it. किस वर्क से ये Far from the maddening crowd has been taken, this title? Can you let me know in the chat box from where this Far from the maddening crowd, the title has been taken? Okay, so this title has been taken from Thomas Gray's Elegy. Elegy written in country churchyard. So this title has been taken from Thomas Gray's Elegy written in country churchyard. So this is again a question of net कि जो Far from the maddening crowd है थॉमस हार्डी की नॉवेल, ये कहाँ से ली गई है. ठीक है, so in the story there has been portrayed a shepherd whose name is Gabriel Oak, and he serves the young Bathsheba Everdeen and owner of the farm. Okay, so this how towards the end she of the novel they got married. Okay, so there was a marriage between Gabriel Oak, who was a shepherd, and Bathsheba Everdeen, who was the owner of that farm, and how they got married in the end. So this was a story all about Far from the maddening crowd. Now the Mayor of Casterbridge. Okay, so the Mayor of Casterbridge is another important work of Hardy, and the subtitle of this work is Life and Death of a Man of Character. Okay, Life and Death Man of Character. ठीक है, ये इसका subtitle है, Life and Death of a Man of Character, and you have to also remember that it is a tragic novel. It is a tragic novel. ठीक है, Life and Death of a Man of Character is a subtitle, and it is a tragic novel which is set in rustic England. ठीक है, so rustic England में it has been set. Next is Test of D'Urbervilles. इसमें जो setting है वो Wessex की है. ठीक है, it is one of the most famous novel of Thomas Hardy, and it is known for the tragedy of the main heroine. Okay, and who was the main heroine? That's Bathsheba. Okay, so she was actually the main heroine, and the setting is Wessex, and the chase grove scene of this particular novel where Alec rapes Tess. Tess is the main character, which she was raped by a person named as Alec, and it happened in the chase grove scene. So this is again very important point कि किस scene में Alec got Tess got raped by Alec. It is in the chase grove scene. Okay, and she later on became impregnated, and she gave the birth to a child named as Sorrow, and when he dies, baptized him herself in the absence of parson. So this was a story about the Test of D'Urbervilles. ठीक है, next is Jude the Obscure. So Jude the Obscure is a very important and a complete novel written by Hardy, and its central character is the Jude Foley, whose sensual nature actually cannot be accommodated into the richer Victorian society, and he was criticized for this kind of behavior. ठीक है, next is A Pair of Blue Eyes, the last work by Hardy, you have to remember, and you have to remember that it is the basically based on the vibe, and it is reflected in the Test of D'Urbervilles as well. ठीक है, so Hardy courtship towards his wife, which has also been reflected in the work or Test of D'Urbervilles, has been also talked about in The Pair of Blue Eyes. Okay, any problem you can just post in the chat box, because this is the last writer which we have discussed in the Victorian age. Okay, so any problem please post in the chat box. Anything you have not understood, I will explain again. Okay, so that's all about this class. So we have talked about romantic second generation writers, and we have also talked about some important writers of the Victorian age as well. Okay, so I hope you will remember all these writers, all their works. Also, let me know that if you want more such sessions, so please comment in the कमेंट सेक्शन ऑफ द वीडियो कि आपको ये पढ़ाने का मोड अच्छा लग रहा है कि एक थ्योरी क्लास होती है, आपकी एमसीक्यूज क्लास होती है प्रीवियस ईयर्स की, और अगर आपको अच्छा लग रहा है प्लीज़ लेट मी नो द रिस्पॉन्स इन द कमेंट सेक्शन, बिकॉज तभी मैं आगे लेक्चर्स भी इसके लेके आऊँगी. ठीक है, सो ब्रिटिश हिस्ट्री के बाद अमेरिकन, यूरोपियन, पोस्ट कॉलोनियल, लिटरेरी थ्योरी, क्रिटिसिज्म, तो ये सब भी आई विल ब्रिंग द सेशन ओनली व्हेन आई गेट द रिस्पॉन्स इन द चैट बॉक्स दैट यू आर लविंग दीज सेशंस. ओके, सो प्लीज लेट मी नो इन द चैट बॉक्स आफ्टर द सेशन, और मैं आपके रिस्पॉन्स पढ़ गई, आई विल डिसाइड टू ब्रिंग ऑल दीज काइंड ऑफ सेशंस. Okay, no doubt. Thank you so much. Okay, so that's what all about these writers. Okay, so please stay tuned for the 1 p.m. session also, क्योंकि जो भी मैंने आपको चीज़ें पढ़ाई हैं, I will be discussing, I will be actually asking you to apply that in questions as well. ठीक है, तो कुछ नए राइटर्स की भी क्वेश्चन डिस्कस होंगे जिनके उनकी बात मैं उसी अपने वीडियो में करूंगी. तो प्लीज स्टे ट्यून फॉर 1 p.m. सेशन, एंड प्लीज लाइक द सेशन, एंड प्लीज सब्सक्राइब टू चैनल एज वेल फॉर मोर सच अपडेट्स. थैंक यू सो मच एंड टेक केयर.